Hi everyone, today I'm going to be going over problem 1 of the mock midterm review. So let's just go ahead and get started. So problem 1 says draw a box and pointer diagram to represent the int list, Sonic, Shadow, and Eggman after each statement. And a little refresher for int list, it has two variables. The first one is int head, which is like the value of the node, and then it has the next variable is int list tail, which is kind of continuing on making this int list look like a linked list in when you visualize it. There's multiple ways of naming these. I think for int head, another way you can call it is int first. I think first is one that is kind of known. And then for tail, another way you can call it is dot rest or dot next. I think those are some common names for int lists. But in our case, we're using head and we're using tail. So let's get started. The first line of code says int list Sonic is equal to int list 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're just going to create this linked list that holds 1, 2, 3, and 4. Also, so sorry if you guys can hear that sound. I guess there's a lot of motorcycles outside my apartment right now. And then this last tail, it doesn't have anything to point to. So, and this is where our int list ends. So we're just going to cross it out to represent that it's null. Okay, now the next line of code is int list shadow is equal to sonic.tail.tail. So int list shadow, so we're creating this shadow variable, which I've already written out already. And this arrow is pointing to nothing because we haven't assigned it to anything yet. But now we know that it's going to be assigned to sonic.tail.tail. So I'm going to erase this arrow and I'm going to go to this laser and we're going to figure out what sonic.tail.tail is. So the pointer for Sonic is this pointer right here. And then we're going to go dot tail. So we're going to jump to this arrow because this is what dot tail represents. And then we're going to jump again to this arrow because we wanted sonic.tail.tail 2 times. So we're going to end up here. And so that's what we're going to assign shadow to. And I want to note that this is referencing the int list node 3. It's not pointing to the value 3. So whenever you reference shadow, you're going to be able to reach 3 and 4. Okay. Okay. The next line of code says int list Eggman is equal to 5, 6, and 7. So we're going to do the same thing that we did for Sonic. And we're just going to apply it to Eggman. And again, the tail for 7 is null, so we're just going to cross it out. Cool. Next line of code says eggman.tail.tail.tail is equal to Eggman. So I'm going to grab my pointer again, and we're going to start here for Eggman. We're going to go dot tail 1 time. We're going to go dot tail again. And 1 last time for 3 dot tails. So we're actually going to be manipulating this dot tail. So instead of it being null, we're actually going to assign it a value. And the value is Eggman. And what pointer is Eggman? It is this pointer. So kind of like we did for shadow, how we pointed the arrow to this int list right here. We're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do this. And so now that's what Eggman should look like. And also to note, if you do 4 dot tails on Eggman, it's gonna come back around, which I'm actually ahead of myself because the next code is actually in reference to this. So let me switch my pen color really quickly. So the next line of code is sonic.tail.tail is equal to Eggman.tail 4 times. So I was saying how we know that this is Eggman.tail 3 times. So when we call dot tail again, it's actually going to go to this node and it's going to go to this arrow because this is the 4th dot tail. Yeah. So we're going to be assigning sonic.tail.tail and it's going to point to this node. And what is Sonic.tail.tail? So we're going to start out here at Sonic. We're going to dot tail once, and then we're going to go dot tail again. So we're actually going to be manipulating this arrow and pointing it down here. And again, this is in reference to the node, the int list that holds the value 6. It doesn't mean that Sonic.tail.tail is equal to 6. And then the last line of code that we have is shadow.tail.tail is equal to Sonic. So we're going to start here at the pointer for shadow, and then we're going to go dot tail once, which is this arrow, and dot tail one more time, which is going to be this null tail here. And we're assigning it to Sonic. And Sonic points to the beginning of this node. So what we're going to do is we're going to point that tail pointer back to the beginning of Sonic. And this is the solution for this part. Okay, so now we're going to be doing this problem. So this says, draw a box and pointer diagram to represent the int list Knuckles, Miles, and Silver after each statement. And also, I don't know if your guys' version has this, but my version has it where Knuckles.tail.tail.tail is equal to L2. It's supposed to be equal to Miles. So yeah, sorry if you guys were confused about that. So let's go ahead and get started. Yeah, so int list Knuckles is equal to int list 1, 2, 3. So again, we're just gonna draw 1, 2, and 3. The next line of code says int list Miles equals new int list 4 comma Knuckles dot tail. This is just another way of writing an int list. So int list dot list is a way where you can just list all your parameters, all the values that you want in the int list. New int list, you're creating a new int list like variable, and your head is going to be 4, so that's going to be the value, and then what the next is pointing to is going to be whatever Knuckles dot tail is. So this is another way of instead of just having null at the end for your tail, you can continue it on with other things. So to draw it out, we're going to create this int list that holds this value 4. And then for tail, we're going to do the whole pointer thing again. So Knuckles.tail. We're going to start here at this arrow for Knuckles. And then we're going to do dot tail. So that means that Miles.tail is referencing this arrow, and this arrow is pointing to this node. So let's go ahead and draw that. And again, it's pointing to the node, not the value 2, just to be a little clear. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do the next line. The next line is miles.tail.head. And if you remember from up here, int list, it has an int head, which is these values inside. And then int list.tail is just pointed to another int list. So let's go back down. So we're going to start here at miles.tail, which is going to be this pointer, and then dot head. So we're manipulating this 2 to equal 13. So now it has a new value of 13. Okay, the next line of code, says Knuckles.tail.tail.tail is equal to Miles. Okay, so we're gonna start here at Knuckles. We're gonna go dot tail once, dot tail again, and dot tail one more time. So this is supposed to be null. I should have crossed it out, but I didn't. But it's fine because now we're adding a value to it. But you should have originally had it crossed off like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to assign this pointer to Miles, and Miles is pointing to this node that contains 4. So let's just draw And that's what that's supposed to look like. Okay. And then the next line of code is int list silver is equal to int list.list 50. So it's just going to contain one value. And this is going to be null. Yeah. And then the last line of code says miles.tail is equal to silver. So we're going to do miles. We're going to go .tail one time, .tail again. And so this arrow is now going to be pointing to silver. So point it. And this should be the solutions.